The champagne toast at my sister-in-law's wedding was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the moment Richard Thornton decided to publicly humiliate me in front of 200 guests. What he didn't know was that one email on my phone would destroy his entire world in less than 5 minutes. My name is David Brenner, and I'm 37 years old. For the past 12 years, I've worked as a warehouse operations manager at Caldwell Industrial Supply. Not glamorous, not flashy, just honest work coordinating logistics for one of the largest industrial distributors in the Midwest. I wear steel-toed boots to work, not Italian leather shoes. My office is a converted storage room with a metal desk and a coffee maker that's older than some of my employees. But I'm good at what I do, and I've built a life I'm proud of. My wife, Jessica, is a marketing coordinator at a boutique advertising agency downtown. We met 10 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue, and I fell for her immediately. She was smart, funny, and didn't care that I worked in a warehouse while she climbed the corporate ladder. Or at least, that's what I thought until her younger sister Amanda's wedding. Amanda was marrying Trevor Thornton, son of Richard Thornton, who owned Thornton Manufacturing, a mid-sized industrial equipment company. The Thorntons had money, the kind that came with country club memberships and summer homes in the Hamptons. They made sure everyone knew it. The wedding was at the Riverside Grand Hotel, the kind of venue where they charge you $300 just to look at the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and enough flowers to stock a florist shop for a month. Jessica had been stressed about it for weeks, constantly reminding me to be on my best behavior, to dress appropriately, to not embarrass her in front of Trevor's family. I'd rented a tuxedo, gotten a fresh haircut, and even splurged on new dress shoes that pinched my feet but looked expensive. I was doing everything right, keeping my mouth shut during the ceremony, smiling politely at Jessica's relatives, and making small talk with guests I'd never see again. Everything was fine until the reception dinner, when Richard Thornton stood up to give his father of the groom speech. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more stories like this one. Now, let's get back to what happened next. Richard Thornton was everything I wasn't. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of commanding presence that came from years of telling people what to do and having them actually listen. He wore a custom suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, and a watch that could have fed a family for a year. His speech started normally enough, talking about Trevor's childhood, making jokes about teaching him to play golf, expressing how proud he was of his son's accomplishments. Standard father of the groom material. But then his eyes landed on our table, where Jessica and I sat with her parents and a few cousins. "I also want to welcome Amanda's family into ours," Richard said, his smile widening in a way that made my stomach tighten. "It's wonderful to see such diverse backgrounds coming together. Amanda's family represents the backbone of America, the hard-working folks who keep our country running." The way he said hard-working made it sound like an insult wrapped in a compliment. Jessica's mother, Patricia, smiled uncertainly. Her father, Frank, shifted in his seat. I felt Jessica's hand squeeze mine under the table, a warning to stay quiet. Richard continued, warming to his subject now. "Take David here, Amanda's brother-in-law, works in a warehouse managing supplies and inventory. Blue-collar work, the kind of honest labor that built this country. Nothing wrong with that at all." The room had gone quiet. People were watching now, sensing something was off about this toast. "My son Trevor, he went to Princeton, got his MBA from Wharton. He'll be taking over the family business someday, managing hundreds of employees, making decisions that affect thousands of lives." Richard paused for effect. "But it takes all kinds, doesn't it? We need people like David to move boxes and sign delivery forms just as much as we need executives to run companies." A few awkward laughs rippled through the crowd. Jessica's face had gone red, not from anger at Richard, but from embarrassment. Embarrassment at me. "So here's to diversity." Richard raised his champagne glass. "To welcoming all types of people into our family, regardless of their station in life. To blue-collar workers and white-collar professionals living in harmony. Cheers." The room erupted in polite applause, though I could see confused expressions on many faces. Some people clearly found Richard's speech uncomfortable. Others, particularly those from Trevor's side, seemed to find it amusing. I sat there, my champagne glass untouched, watching my wife avoid my eyes. She was clapping along with everyone else, That forced smile plastered on her face like she was trying to pretend this hadn't just happened. "Jessica," I said quietly. "Not now, David," she whispered back, still not looking at me. Richard sat down to congratulatory pats on the back from his table. Trevor looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Amanda was glaring at her new father-in-law, but she also remained silent. I excused myself from the table, needing air, needing space away from the whispers I could already hear starting around us. As I walked through the ballroom toward the terrace, I heard Jessica's cousin Melissa say to her husband, "I mean, he does work in a warehouse. Richard wasn't exactly wrong." The terrace was mostly empty, just a few smokers huddled near the far railing. I pulled out my phone, not to call anyone, just to have something to do with my hands while I processed what had just happened. That's when I saw the email. It had come in 2 hours ago during the ceremony from Leonard Caldwell, the CEO of Caldwell Industrial Supply. The subject line read, "Confidential, Thornton acquisition finalized." I opened it, my heart starting to pound. David, as discussed in our executive meeting last month, the acquisition of Thornton Manufacturing has been finalized as of 4 p.m. today. All documentation is signed. You'll begin integration oversight on Monday. Congratulations on your promotion to Regional Operations Director. This puts you in direct supervisory authority over all Thornton facilities. I trust you'll handle this transition with your usual professionalism. Board announcement goes public Monday morning. Leonard. I read it 3 times, my brain struggling to process the implications. Caldwell Industrial Supply had acquired Thornton Manufacturing. Richard Thornton's company was now owned by my company, and I'd just been promoted to a position that put me in direct authority over his operations. The man who'd just humiliated me in front of 200 people now worked for me. I stood there on that terrace, looking at my phone, and started laughing. Not loud, not hysterical, just a quiet chuckle that grew into something more substantial. The absurdity of it all, the perfect cosmic justice, was almost too much to comprehend. Something funny? I turned to find Trevor standing a few feet away, loosening his bow tie. He looked tired, stressed, and more than a little embarrassed. "Your father's speech," I said carefully. "It was something." Trevor winced. "Yeah, about that. My dad can be... He means well, but he doesn't always think before he speaks. He seemed pretty deliberate to me." "I know." Trevor ran his hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, David. That was out of line. Amanda's furious with him." Jessica looked mortified. "Jessica was embarrassed all right," I said. Just not sure who she was embarrassed for. Trevor didn't have a response to that. We stood in uncomfortable silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "How much do you know about your father's company?" Trevor shrugged. "Enough. I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations. I work in financial consulting, different field entirely. Why?" "Just curious. Your father seems very proud of it." "It's his life's work," Trevor said. "Built it from nothing 30 years ago. He's got about 300 employees, annual revenue around $80 million. Solid mid-market player in industrial equipment manufacturing." I nodded slowly. "And you're set to inherit it someday?" "That's the plan. Though honestly, I'm not sure I want it. The manufacturing sector's been tough lately. Dad's been dealing with increased competition, supply chain issues, rising costs. He puts on a good front, but I know he's been stressed about it." "Stressed enough to sell?" Trevor looked at me sharply. "What do you mean?" I showed him my phone. Trevor's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, comprehension, shock, and finally something that looked like fear. "This is real?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Leonard Caldwell doesn't send fake emails," I replied. "But this means..." Trevor trailed off, his brain working through the implications. "It means your father's company is now owned by Caldwell Industrial Supply, my company, and as of Monday, I'm the Regional Operations Director overseeing all acquired facilities, including Thornton Manufacturing." Trevor's face had gone completely white. "Does my father know?" "About the acquisition? He should. He would have had to sign off on it. About my promotion? Probably not. That was just finalized this afternoon." "Oh God," Trevor said. "Oh God, Amanda's going to kill me." "Why would Amanda kill you? This isn't your fault." Because my father just publicly humiliated her sister's husband, who it turns out is now his boss. Do you have any idea? How bad this looks. How bad this makes our entire family look. I hadn't thought about it from that angle, but Trevor was right. Richard Thornton had just spent 10 minutes mocking a man who now had authority over his company's operations. It was professional suicide wrapped in a champagne toast. "What are you going to do?" Trevor asked. I looked back through the terrace doors at the reception still going on inside. Jessica was talking animatedly with her mother, probably complaining about how embarrassing the whole situation was. Richard was holding court at his table, looking pleased with himself. Amanda sat alone at the head table, staring at her untouched cake. "I'm going to go back inside," I said, "and I'm going to show your father that email." "David, maybe you should wait. Think about this. There's got to be a better way to handle it." "I've spent the last 10 minutes thinking about it," I replied. "And I've decided that your father needs to understand something important right now before he spends the rest of the night telling warehouse jokes to his friends." Trevor grabbed my arm. "Please, I'm begging you, don't do this tonight. Not at my wedding." I looked at him. This man who'd just married into my wife's family, who seemed genuinely distressed by what was about to happen. "Did you try to stop your father during that speech?" I asked. Trevor's hand dropped. "No." "Did your mother? Did anyone from your family stand up and say that was inappropriate?" "No." "But now you want me to show restraint, to be the bigger person, to not embarrass anyone. I just don't want my wedding ruined." "Your father should have thought about that before he decided to use me as a punchline," I said, walking past him toward the ballroom. The reception was in full swing. The DJ was playing something upbeat, couples were dancing, and waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. I walked directly to Richard Thornton's table, where he sat, surrounded by business associates and family members. "Richard," I said, my voice cutting through their conversation, "I need to show you something." He looked up at me with barely concealed disdain. "David, enjoying the party? The open bar must be a nice change from whatever you usually drink." A few people at the table laughed. I ignored them. "I just received an email from my CEO," I said, holding out my phone. "I think you'll find it interesting." Richard took the phone with a condescending smile, like he was humoring a child. I watched his expression as he read the email. The smile faded first, replaced by confusion. Then his eyes widened as comprehension hit. The blood drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. "This can't be right," he said, his voice hoarse. "It's right. Finalized at 4 p.m. today. You should have received the documentation." Richard's hands were shaking now. "But I was told. They said the acquiring company was. They never mentioned. Caldwell operates through multiple subsidiary names for acquisitions," I explained. "Standard practice. But yes, Caldwell Industrial Supply is the parent company. My company." One of the men at the table leaned over to look at the phone. "Rich, what's going on?" Richard couldn't speak. He just sat there, staring at the email like it was a death sentence. "You sold your company," I continued, my voice carrying to the nearby tables. People were starting to notice the commotion. "To Caldwell Industrial Supply, which means as of Monday morning, Thornton Manufacturing is now a Caldwell facility, and I've just been promoted to Regional Operations Director, which means I'll be overseeing all integration and operations at your facility." The man who'd been reading over Richard's shoulder inhaled sharply. "Jesus Christ, Rich." "So about that blue-collar comment in your speech," I said. "About how people like me just move boxes and sign delivery forms while people like you make important decisions? I'm going to need you to keep that in mind Monday morning when we have our first operational review meeting, as your new supervisor." The terrace had gone completely silent. The DJ had stopped the music. Everyone was watching now, watching Richard Thornton realize that the man he'd just publicly mocked was now his boss. Trevor had followed me inside and was standing nearby, his face pale. Amanda was on her feet at the head table, looking between her new husband and her father-in-law with growing horror. And Jessica. Jessica was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not anger exactly. Not pride either. Something closer to shock. Richard finally found his voice. "This is a misunderstanding. There's been some kind of mistake." "No mistake," I said. "Leonard Caldwell doesn't make mistakes about acquisitions. You signed the papers, Richard. You sold your company. You just didn't realize who you sold it to." "David." Jessica appeared at my side, her hand on my arm. "Can we talk? Privately?" "In a minute," I said, not taking my eyes off Richard. Richard stood up, trying to recover some dignity. "This is my son's wedding. Whatever business matters need discussing can wait until Monday." "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "Which is why I wish you'd thought about that before you decided to make your toast all about class differences and blue-collar work. But since you brought it up, I thought you should know exactly who you were talking about." Richard's jaw clenched. "I want to speak with Leonard Caldwell, first thing Monday morning." "That can be arranged," I said. Though I should mention that Leonard specifically asked me to handle the Thornton integration personally. He trusts my judgment, thinks I have a good read on operational efficiency and personnel management. The implication hung in the air. Richard Thornton's future at his own company now depended on the opinion of the man he'd just humiliated. "David, please," Jessica said again, pulling at my arm harder now. "You've made your point. Let's go." I let her lead me away from Richard's table, through the crowd of stunned guests, and out into the hotel corridor. As soon as we were alone, she rounded on me. "What the hell was that?" she demanded. "That was me standing up for myself," I replied. "Something you notably didn't do. You just humiliated Richard Thornton at his son's wedding." "He humiliated me first. I just had better ammunition." Jessica's face was flushed with anger. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The position you've put me in? Put Amanda in?" "The position I've put you in?" I repeated slowly. "Jessica, your sister's father-in-law just spent 10 minutes of his speech mocking my job in front of everyone we know. And you sat there and laughed along with everyone else." "I did not laugh." "You didn't defend me either. You just sat there embarrassed that your husband works in a warehouse, embarrassed that I don't have an Ivy League degree or a trust fund or whatever the hell Richard Thornton thinks makes someone worthy of respect." Jessica opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. She couldn't deny it. "You know what hurts the most?" I continued. "It's not Richard's comments. Rich assholes exist. I can deal with that. It's that you were embarrassed by me. That you've apparently been embarrassed by me this whole time, and I just never noticed." "That's not fair," Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? When's the last time you invited anyone from your advertising agency to our house? When's the last time you introduced me to your coworkers without some qualifier about how I'm really smart or actually makes good money like you're apologizing for what I do?" She didn't have an answer. "I need some air," I said, walking toward the hotel exit. "David, wait." I kept walking. Outside, the night air was cool and cleared my head. I found a bench near the hotel entrance and sat down, loosening my bow tie and finally letting myself process everything that had happened. My phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. "We need to talk. This is a disaster." Another from Amanda. "I'm so sorry about Richard. He's always been an ass, but tonight was unforgivable." And one from my boss, Leonard. "Heard through the grapevine you had an interesting evening. Call me tomorrow. We should discuss Monday's approach." Nothing from Jessica. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes before Trevor found me. He ditched his tuxedo jacket and had that shell-shocked expression of a man whose wedding had just imploded. "My father wants to apologize," Trevor said, sitting down beside me. "Does he actually want to apologize, or does he just want to do damage control before Monday?" Trevor laughed bitterly. "You know the answer to that." We sat in silence for a moment. "For what it's worth," Trevor said finally, "that speech was bullshit. I told him not to make it about class or money or any of that, but he never listens. He always thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. He's about to learn otherwise. Are you going to fire him? Force him out of his own company?" I thought about it. "I don't know yet. That depends on him, on how he handles this, on whether he's actually willing to work with Caldwell's systems and oversight. But I'm not going to lie to you, Trevor. After tonight, I'm not feeling particularly generous." "I get that," Trevor said. "I really do." "Does Amanda hate me?" "Amanda hates my father. She's ready to have the marriage annulled just to get away from him." Trevor rubbed his face. "This was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives." "Your father made sure it wouldn't be." "Yeah," Trevor agreed. "He did." We sat there, two men who'd been thrown together by marriage and were now bound by humiliation and corporate hierarchy, watching cars come and go from the hotel entrance. "Jessica's still inside," Trevor said. After a while. She's pretty upset. At me or at Richard? Both, I think, but mostly at the situation. I nodded. That sounded about right. You should probably go back in, Trevor said. Talk to her. I will. I just need a few more minutes. Trevor stood up, straightening his shirt. David, I know this is a mess, but thank you for not letting my father get away with that speech. Someone needed to check him. After Trevor left, I pulled out my phone and called Leonard Caldwell. He answered on the second ring. David, I was wondering when you'd call. How did you hear about tonight? I asked. Richard Thornton called me about an hour ago, screaming about impropriety and conflicts of interest and demanding your termination. Leonard chuckled. I told him to go to hell. What exactly did you tell him? I told him that you're one of the best operational managers I've ever worked with, that your promotion was based on merit and had nothing to do with personal relationships, and that if he had a problem with Caldwell's management structure, he was welcome to buy back his company for triple what we paid for it. I couldn't help but smile. What did he say? Nothing, just hung up. David, I want to be clear about something. The Thornton acquisition was strategic. We needed their manufacturing capacity and their client relationships. But I don't tolerate bullies, and I don't tolerate people who disrespect my employees. So what happens Monday? Monday, you go in there as regional operations director, and you do your job. You assess the facility, review their operations, identify inefficiencies, and make recommendations. If Richard Thornton can't work within that structure professionally, then we'll discuss his future with the company. But David, you handle this by the book. No personal vendettas, no revenge plays, just clean, professional oversight. Understood. Good. Now go back to that wedding and salvage what's left of your evening. And David, congratulations on the promotion. You earned it. After hanging up, I headed back inside. The reception was still going on, but the energy had shifted. People were talking in low voices, casting glances toward Richard's table where he sat alone now, staring into his champagne glass. I found Jessica sitting at our table, her mascara slightly smudged from crying. We should go, she said when she saw me. I can't be here anymore. We drove home in silence. Our house was dark and empty, and somehow that felt appropriate. Jessica went straight upstairs to change. I loosened my tie and poured myself a whiskey in the kitchen. She came back down in sweatpants and one of my old college t-shirts, her hair pulled back, all traces of the wedding makeup gone. I'm sorry, she said finally, for not defending you tonight. Why didn't you? Jessica sat down at the kitchen table, wrapping her hands around a glass of water. Because part of me was embarrassed, and I hate that about myself, but it's true. Embarrassed about what exactly? About the difference between us. About how I work in this sleek downtown office with people who have master's degrees and wear designer clothes, and you work in a warehouse. About how when people at my company ask what my husband does, I always find myself adding qualifiers like, but he makes really good money, or he's really smart about logistics. Like you're apologizing for me. Yes, she admitted. And tonight, when Richard said all those things out loud, when he put into words what I've been feeling but never saying, I realized how awful I've been. How shallow and materialistic and just awful. I sipped my whiskey, letting her continue. I married you because I loved you, because you were genuine and hardworking and didn't play games. But somewhere along the way, I started caring more about appearances than substance. Started measuring our life against other people's lives. And tonight, I let my own insecurities keep me from standing up for my husband. So what now? I asked. Jessica looked at me with tears in her eyes. I don't know. I want to say I'll be better, that I'll change, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I can stop caring about what other people think. That's probably the most honest thing you've said to me in months. We sat in silence for a while, both of us processing the ruins of the evening. Are you going to make Richard's life hell on Monday? Jessica asked. I'm going to do my job. Whether that makes his life hell depends entirely on him. He deserves it, you know, what he said tonight. Yeah, he does. But that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because Caldwell acquired Thornton Manufacturing for strategic reasons, and I'm the person they trust to manage that integration. Everything else is just unfortunate timing. Jessica smiled slightly. You're a better person than I am. I just have different priorities. Monday. Morning came faster than expected. I arrived at Thornton Manufacturing at 8 a.m. sharp, dressed in my work clothes, steel-toed boots, and carrying a tablet loaded with integration protocols and assessment criteria. Richard Thornton's secretary tried to stop me at the entrance to his office. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Thornton doesn't have you on his schedule." I showed her my Caldwell credentials. "Regional Operations Director. I don't need to be on his schedule." Richard's office was exactly what I expected. Dark wood, leather furniture, photographs of him with various politicians and business leaders. He was sitting behind his massive desk, looking like he hadn't slept. "Good morning, Richard," I said, taking a seat across from him without being invited. "Ready to discuss operational integration?" He stared at me with undisguised hatred. "This is harassment. This is business. Caldwell acquired your company. I'm here to ensure smooth integration, that's all. I want Leonard Caldwell here for these meetings. Leonard's in Tokyo closing another acquisition. You've got me." For the next 3 hours, we went through Thornton Manufacturing's operations, production schedules, supply chain logistics, personnel files, quality control metrics. With every question I asked, every inefficiency I identified, I could see Richard's resentment growing. But here's the thing. I was good at my job. The questions I asked were legitimate. The concerns I raised were valid. And slowly, grudgingly, Richard began to realize that I actually knew what I was talking about. "Your inventory turnover rate is below industry standard," I noted, scrolling through their warehouse data. "You're carrying too much dead stock. That's capital that could be better deployed elsewhere." Richard leaned back in his chair. "We keep high inventory levels to ensure customer satisfaction. You keep high inventory levels because your forecasting system is outdated. Caldwell uses predictive analytics that can reduce your carrying costs by 30% while actually improving delivery times." He had no response to that. By noon, we'd identified $2 million in potential savings through operational improvements. None of it required layoffs or facility closures. Just better systems, better processes, better management. "I'll have formal recommendations to you by end of week," I said, packing up my tablet. "We'll reconvene Monday to discuss implementation." Richard walked me to the door. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Lording it over me?" "Actually, no. I'm doing my job. That's what you never understood about people like me, Richard. We don't need to prove we're better than anyone. We just need to do good work." As I walked out of Thornton Manufacturing, my phone rang. "Jessica." "How did it go?" she asked. "Professionally. I'm proud of you." "Thanks. Listen, I've been thinking about us, about what you said Saturday night. David, Let me finish. I think we need counseling. Real, honest counseling where we talk about our expectations and our resentments and figure out if this marriage is something we both actually want to fight for." There was a long pause. "Okay. Yes. I'll find someone." "Good. And Jessica? No more apologizing for what I do. No more qualifiers or explanations. Either you're proud of me or you're not, but I need to know which it is." "I'm proud of you," she said. "I'm just not always proud of myself." That was honest, at least. 6 months later, Richard Thornton retired early from Thornton Manufacturing. The official story was that he wanted to spend more time with family. The real story was that he couldn't handle working within Caldwell's structure. Couldn't handle reporting to someone he'd once mocked. Trevor took over day-to-day operations, and honestly, he was better at it. More open to change, more willing to listen to suggestions. Under his leadership and Caldwell's systems, Thornton Manufacturing became one of our most profitable facilities. Jessica and I are still in counseling. Some weeks are better than others. We're learning to communicate, to be honest about our feelings, to address our resentments before they become weapons. I don't know if we'll make it, but we're trying. Amanda and Trevor are doing well. They had a baby girl last month and deliberately chose not to invite Richard to the hospital. Some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. As for me, I'm still wearing steel-toed boots to work, still managing warehouses and logistics operations. But now I do it with the title of Regional Operations Director and the knowledge that honest work is nothing to apologize for. Richard Thornton tried to humiliate me because he thought blue-collar meant lesser. He learned the hard way that the color of your collar doesn't determine your worth. Your character does. And that lesson cost him everything. If this story resonated with you, Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Have you ever been underestimated because of your profession? Tell us your story below. And make sure to subscribe for more powerful real-life stories that remind us all that respect is earned, not bought.